Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Friday, October 27th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by Jason Cabrera. What's up, Jason?
Not a whole lot, man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. You know, I had a great night watching my Ravens do a shutout game, looking like the team that, you know, we hoped they would be all season long, and has not been. And I'm not taking away, you know, anything too. I'm not buying into it too much. I still know what this team is. It was a good matchup.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing when I watched my Cardinals have a fantastic game, and then the very next week they absolutely crapped the bed and just basically drown their entire season. So, yeah, don't read too much into it, man. 1 week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that, I guess we can jump into the warm-up, which, again, what was our biggest takeaway from Miami versus Baltimore, the Thursday night game. And simply, yes, it was 1 week, and I will say it's amazing what happens when the Ravens are able to get up early and force the other team to throw more because, you know, we're a top three pass defense when it comes to fantasy, especially. So, you know, playing to our strength and getting a healthy defensive line really helped shut down the run. I mean, Jay Ajayi didn't break 30 yards, I think it was. So, you know, good stuff. Offense is still crap. Kiko Alonso should get suspended. And, yeah, you know, lots of crazy stuff. What were your takeaways?
Well, Matt Moore is definitely exactly who we figure he is.
Yes.
He's not a starting quarterback at all.
That is Jay Cutler's job when he gets back, for sure.
I mean, absolutely. And, I mean, those two, he threw two pick sixes, and that last one was absolutely awful. I mean, it was just, I don't even know what he was looking at. I think he was looking at the rusher in his face. And when he let that ball go, he should never have thrown that ball. But yeah, I mean, it just went to show you, you know, you don't have a good quarterback. It's not going to happen. As far as Kiko Alonso goes, I'll say this. You know, I get it. I agree. I think he was a little vicious with the hit, but Flacco should have slid earlier. I mean, he tried to get a few extra yards out of that, and then suddenly dropped to try to hit that slide, and then that's when Alonso about took his head off. So it was vicious. I think he'll get in trouble, but I don't think he's going to get as much trouble as everybody else thinks.
I don't know about that, because if you actually watch it in slow motion, like Joe Flacco not only engaged the slide, but he was sliding when Kiko Alonso actually launched, and he led with the forearm. He could have dove out of the way. He could have not launched at all. There's a lot of things he could have done other than taking the quarterback's helmet off with his elbow and giving him a concussion, knocking him out of the game is all I'm saying. There are plenty of ways to avoid that hit.
Right. That slide, if you watch it at full speed, he drops. He dropped quickly. He tried to slide as quick as possible. So yeah, he was engaged in the slide, but that's because he basically just dropped himself to the ground as quick as he possibly could. And he gave himself up, but it wasn't until Kiko was already in the process of tackling him. So again, it was a vicious hit. I don't think he needed to be quite as vicious as it was, but again, Flacco tried to make something out of nothing, and so that's why he ended up getting crunched like that. He needs to start that slide about 2 yards earlier.
Yeah, but he's doing what any other quarterback would do, trying to pick up the first down, but when he knew he he started to slide. I mean, it's a typical play. And
if you're going to do that...
He had not launched yet, like I said. He may have started to crouch to tackle, but he had not launched at Joe Flacco until he was already down.
He was already in the air, man. When Flacco went for that slide, Kiko was already in the air. But this is what I'll say about that. If you're going to do what he did, if you're going to do what Flacco did, you better go head first and protect yourself. You know you're going to get slammed, so you go head first. You put that shoulder in there, make the defender pay. Don't try to slide at the very, very last possible second. That's all I'm saying.
The slide is how the quarterback protects himself. That's why they slide, to give themselves
up. Yeah.
But regardless, we're going to go back and forth on this. You're seeing it different than I am, and we'll go back and we'll check the tape again.
Of course, you're a Ravens fan. Of course I'm seeing it differently from you are.
Not even as a Ravens fan. He was already sliding when it happened. But again, we're going back and forth. We got to move on. So everyone will have their own opinion, and we'll see what happens when the NFL has a ruling. Because even they were talking about they tried to reach the head of officiating. They said they didn't have a comment yet. So I think he's going to get in trouble. But
they're going to fine him. I mean, it's a quarterback. You even look sternly at a quarterback these days, you're going to get a fine.
Right, but anyway, this is a fantasy show, so we should probably get back to fantasy. Not too much to take away from this. Miami Dolphins offensively were shut down. Running game, passing game, nothing happened there. Ravens defense looking like what we were expecting it to be on the Ravens side. They put up 40 points, but I mean, Alex Collins putting up a massive yardage performance, still didn't get in the end zone. And Jeremy Maclin getting a touchdown early, but as a whole, not necessarily a huge statistical day. So, you probably weren't starting anyone in this game anyway. I mean, obviously, Ravens offensive players are not exciting, and the Dolphins had a tough matchup against a good defense. So, probably not a lot of fantasy impact here. Devontae Parker did not play, so hopefully you guys paid attention and did not have him in your starting lineup. So with that, let's move on to our top headlines from around the league, and a bit of quarterback news as we run down here. Starting with Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers was officially placed on IR. He has already undergone his surgery where he got 13 screws inserted into his collarbone. So yeah, that's pretty intense. So that extends his timetable to return. He's officially droppable. He will not be back during the fantasy season.
Yeah, no, he's out.
Yeah, minimum 8 weeks. Same with Carson Palmer, who officially was placed on IR as well. So both of them are. If you hadn't already dropped Carson Palmer, it's impressive that you held on that long. Kind of silly.
There goes our season. Yep. Right there. Arizona's season done.
Well, I mean, yeah. Also, Miami quarterback Jay Cutler is expected to, quote, be available in Week 9 versus Oakland. Now, this report came out before the Thursday night game, so I think that if they're able to at all suit him up, he's going to be out there. Yeah. So, potentially good news for Devontae Parker owners, and we'll see how it plays out. That entire Miami Dolphins offense has been a big disappointment, but I guess that's what happens when your starting quarterback goes down early. Well, in training camp, you bring in somebody who had retired, who is still getting up. He's not even really in game shape, and he's still getting the system down, getting rapport with his new weapons. And then when you have a backup behind that who clearly is not a suitable NFL quarterback. So you need a quarterback to be functional in this league. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the running back position.
Hoping to...
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say they were hoping to get a little Sam Bradford magic. They were hoping that same thing would happen as happened with Minnesota when they brought in Sam Bradford. That is clearly not what happened when Jay Cutler stepped in.
No. To the running back position, where Los Angeles Chargers running back Melvin Gordon has remained sidelined at practice through Thursday, dealing with the foot injury. His status is still somewhat up in the air. He is questionable. Let's go to the wide receiver position. A bit of wide receiver news, where New Orleans wide receiver Michael Thomas returned to practice on Thursday. He has been dealing with a knee injury, so that's good news there. In Denver, wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders remains sidelined at practice on Thursday, dealing with a knee. He is, based on everything we're hearing, not expected to play this week. Have you heard any differently, Jason?
I have not.
All right, so Emmanuel Sanders seeming to be Trevor Siemian's favorite target, not going to play. Not great going against the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's go to Minnesota, where wide receiver Stephon Diggs was a full participant, got a full workout in on Thursday, of course dealing with groin and ankle injuries. His status is still up in the air, playing overseas against the Cleveland Browns, but this is definitely a good step towards him starting. So, a guy who was a top fantasy option through the first 3 weeks and has been slowly coming back. So, I mean, if he starts, do you play him? I don't know how I feel about it. Overseas with an uncertain quarterback situation and what is actually a tough matchup for wide receivers.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't play him at all. I mean, like you said, it's a backup quarterback. It's London, which has proven not to be kind to wide receivers, and he's coming off groin ankle injuries. No, I absolutely don't play him.
I agree. I'm giving him at least a week, and I would like to see him, actually in the States playing. Not a super long travel. So, and just again, I feel like they'll probably limit his touches in his first game back. So I'm not firing him up with confidence. Yeah, CJ, what are your thoughts? Oh, that's right. CJ's not here because I don't know what he is.
That's all right. I've missed my fair share too. It's okay.
What is this, your second show in like the last 6, I think? I don't know. Regardless.
It's been a little, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, guys. I might be moving to a different city. A lot of stuff's happening. So we're doing the best we can, and we're still giving you some good information here. And I'm glad to be back. I should be back for the next couple of shows.
Hey-o. Don't worry, fans. I will be here. Let's go to right. Let's go to Detroit, where wide receiver Golden Tate said he does not know if he will play in Week 8 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's dealing with that shoulder injury. Bad news there. If Golden Tate doesn't play,
that's not good.
I mean, I don't think you're firing up many Detroit Lions anyway, but he's the only one that I'd be starting with any level of confidence. So now I'm definitely not confident in him. So we will monitor as we go forward into the weekend. In New England, wide receiver Danny Amendola is questionable on Sunday against the Chargers. He has a hyperextended knee, so that's yeah. So obviously, if Danny Amendola does not play, Chris Hogan gets a massive bump. So definitely something to monitor if you're a Chris Hogan owner. And last bit of news, which is somewhat exciting. I mean, this guy obviously has ties to both of our teams, Jason. Unrestricted free agent wide receiver Anquan Boldin. Well, he's technically Buffalo Bill wide receiver, but they said that he has expressed interest in playing again, and Buffalo has given his agent permission to shop him around. This is via ESPN, who obtained a letter to that effect. So Anquan Boldin is out there in Buffalo. Looks like they're not going to be doing anything crazy to try and hold on to him because they do have his rights because he retired under contract with them.
Right.
There's plenty of teams that could use the services of a solid possession receiver like Anquan Boldin. My Ravens being one of them.
Arizona being one as well. We'd love to take him.
Well, I mean, Arizona needs a quarterback, but I guess you could say the same thing about the Ravens, even with Joe Flacco in there. So,
yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Not next week, you won't.
No.
They gotta sew his head back on after that.
Yep. Yes, they do. But he's got 10 weeks to recover. But I'm trying to think, where would be a good fit? Who's really hurting for a possession receiver right now? I mean, there's plenty of teams. So I'm trying to think if anyone really jumps out to me.
San Francisco. I don't know if Pierre Garçon is supposed to be that guy, but he's kind of not that guy.
Yeah, but I think they'd be looking for
would be a step up.
Yeah, I think they'd be looking for a compliment. I don't know if he would go back to San Francisco.
Yeah, probably not.
Let's see. I'm like going through like division by division. Giants is a good one. Giants could definitely use his services.
Just lost their two top guys. They got a Sterling Shepard. They need somebody who can complement, and that would be a decent compliment.
That would be. Jacksonville could. No, they've got possession guys. This is completely unprepared, as you listeners can probably tell. This is just completely off the top of our heads.
This is off the cuff, as they like to say.
Yes, it is. No, not
Jets.
Denver, I thought about the Jets,
Jets.
But I mean, the Jets. I feel like they already have Austin Seferian-Jenkins filling that role pretty efficiently. I mean, if they wanted one at the wide receiver position. It could be him.
Yeah, I was going to say, Seferian-Jenkins is a tight end. You know, I mean, you want a receiver in that position. And I think that Anquan Boldin would be a step up for them, honestly.
Yeah. What about Seattle? Because they've got Doug Baldwin on the slot.
Because Baldwin's kind of that guy. I mean, he's not really a deep threat kind of guy. He's more of a mid-range guy, and he's kind of that guy already.
Right, but they have Baldwin going out of the slot, and Anquan Boldin would line up out wide. I mean that's kind of what they use Jimmy Graham for, but Jimmy Graham's more of a red zone threat for them, though he hasn't really gotten that involved this year, and they've got a couple of different speedsters.
Not threatening at all as a red zone threat. You know, I think he'd fit. Honestly, I think he'd fit in anywhere. I mean, he's a really tough receiver. He's an after the catch yardage guy. Who is just a tough, hard-nosed veteran. He would fit in pretty much in any locker room. Where I would like to see him is Kansas City as a compliment to Hill. Because Hill's that deep threat who stretch things, and then Anquan Boldin is sort of the kind of guy that Alex Smith loves to throw to anyway, that hard-nosed, between the hash marks kind of a guy. So that might be kind of cool.
I've got it. I know where I want to see him. I want to see him.
Where do you want to see him?
In Indianapolis with Andrew Luck coming back. Because Dante Moncrief has not been great.
You have to wait a few weeks.
I'm just saying, it's going to probably take a few weeks for this all to happen. Kamar Aiken's not really doing anything. I mean, I would love to see him opposite of T.Y. Hilton. I think him with Andrew Luck, that'd be a great way for him to end his career.
That's true.
That would be awesome.
The same kind of thing as Kansas City there with Tyreek Hill. You got T.Y. Hilton, same kind of player. Yeah, I think that would be a nice fit.
Yeah, if we're not doing homer picks, obviously Arizona, Baltimore, I would like to see him with the Colts or the Giants. I think those are my final answers.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, maybe Cowboys could use him, but that's kind of what Dez is. Dez is kind of a hybrid. I don't know. Anyway, we're spending way too much time on Anquan Bolden.
Weapon.
Yeah. So yeah, Anquan Bolden. We're being a little bit too much time on him just simply because we have ties to him, and he's obviously.
We both love him.
We do. He's a great receiver. I'm trying to debate in my head right now if he'd be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's been on plenty of good offenses. He's put up great stats. He's got great career achievements, milestones. He has a Super Bowl ring. I think he's got to at least be in a discussion. I don't think he's first ballot.
No, not even by far. Maybe not even second ballot. But I mean, he definitely has got to be in the discussion eventually.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know. All right, too much time on Anquan Bolden. A little bit more real football talk there than fantasy. Let's move on. And we'll move on to our topic of the day, which is our week number 8 starts and sits. Now, we are in a bit of a bye-week hell here. We are in the first of 2 weeks back-to-back where there are 6 teams on a bye. So that is brutal. So if you have any shares of Arizona Cardinals, Green Bay Packers, Jacksonville Jaguars, Los Angeles Rams, New York Giants, or Tennessee Titans, check your lineups because they will be doing you no good this week. So with that, let's start.
This is a good week to show you how well you draft for depth. This is a good week for that.
Yes, this and next week for sure. So let's start with the quarterback position for our starts of the week. And my start of the week is Phillip Rivers. Guys, Phillip Rivers, I mean, obviously, you hear the name Phillip Rivers, and I guess a part of you kind of says, well, duh, but he's not a locked and loaded guy. He's on a lot of waiver wires, whether you believe it or not, and he has just an amazing matchup against the New England Patriots. Yeah, I know Matt Ryan, he broke the string. The Patriots have given up 300-yard passers every single week up until last week, and then Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl rematch could not get it done. And a lot of that we're hearing is there's just dysfunction in the Atlanta offense with Sarkisian there.
That's bad.
Did you hear about the report that came out where they're saying, like, he was like, you've been through multiple offensive coordinators, you've been in this league for a long time, you know what you like, you tell me what plays you like to run, and that's what I'll call. So he's not actually running an offensive system at all. It's just Matt Ryan's favorite plays.
Absolutely. And you can't let the inmates run the asylum. It never works. You know, I get it. He's a veteran quarterback, but there's a reason why you have an offensive coordinator and a quarterback. You've got to have those two heads working together to have a successful team. So he's not. I mean, Matt is awesome, but he's not Peyton Manning.
No, he's not. So I throw that game out. So even if you include that game, the Patriots are still giving up the most points to the quarterback position by a decent margin. This is a great fantasy matchup, and even though this game is in New England, I'm still starting Phillip Rivers with absolute confidence. For the record, we did get CJ's guys. CJ is starting Jameis Winston versus the Carolina Panthers. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this matchup? I'm not super wild about it. Divisional.
I'm not a big fan. Look, the Panthers have actually played relatively well against the quarterback, so I'm kind of shocked that he went this route. He's a big Jameis Winston fan. They're playing in Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston has started to pick it up a little bit recently, but I'm an owner. I have several shares of Jameis Winston myself. I wouldn't start him because this is a really, really bad matchup against Carolina. So I'm not sure where CJ's thought process was. Now, I will say this, CJ's been right a lot this year. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, I get it.
I don't know if I would give him that much credit, but the Panthers. Like I said, it's divisional. I know Jameis Winston out of nowhere had a great week last week against what was a really tough matchup, but he's got good weapons. Those things will happen, but divisional is different, and this is a tougher matchup than I think he's giving it credit for. So I think they're giving up the 21st most points to fantasy quarterbacks, so it's not good.
Yeah,
it's a bottom 12 matchup. So. Bottom third.
You'd say 11th best in the league in that particular case. It's on the other side,
Yeah. I mean, could it work out? Sure. I I'm looking probably elsewhere this week because there's other options.
Yeah.
There's streamable options.
Just trying to play CJ advocate here. I think what he's thinking is that Jameis Winston has kind of found what he was looking for through the first half of the season, or first quarter of the season or so. Has kind of picked it up. Has kind of had that light switch go off in his head. He's playing extremely well, and I think that will continue. But again, as we've mentioned, it's a tough matchup. It's divisional. I wouldn't start him. Yeah,
I know he had a great week against Buffalo, but I think that was somewhat of an anomaly, and he's still kind of banged up. I'm not doing it, but I mean, hey, if that's your guy, go for it. But I'm streaming this week in our league of record, Josh McCown. There's streamers out there, is all I'm saying. I didn't say I loved it. I didn't say I loved it, but because our league is full of hoarders, that some teams have 3 or 4 quarterbacks, that's kind of dried up the pool. Right. And you know what? I don't hate the matchup. I think he's a viable streaming option. He's not my start of the week, but he's a streamer for sure.
Not at all.
Your guy.
Not at all. Yeah. My guy. I wish CJ was here because he'd love to hear this from me. Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Carson Wentz. I think he is a very, very good quarterback. And you know what? The numbers say that he's a very, very good quarterback this year. I think he's, third or something like that overall right now in fantasy as a quarterback? What is he? Second? Third? Something like that? I don't know. Point is, he's like top 5 right now in fantasy. He has played extremely well, and he has himself a juicy matchup against the San Francisco 49ers this week, who are giving up the second most points to quarterbacks through the season. So Carson Wentz is on the upswing. I would definitely start this guy with confidence.
Yeah, he is currently the number 2 quarterback in fantasy with 6 points per passing touchdown leagues. So, yeah, just putting that out there. I gave you guys the best matchup. You gave them the second best. Obviously, I like both of those options. So, with that, let's move to our running back starts of the week. And I am starting Joe Mixon. Guys, I know Joe Mixon's been a letdown. He really has been. I can't fault you for having a little bit of hesitance here. But here's the thing. Joe Mixon, he's got a home game against the Indianapolis Colts.
Sort of home.
That's pretty good. It's one of those things that you stream against. I think that they're going to get it going, and I think that this is just a matchup where it's make or break for me. I'm not going to say I'm not going to play him after this because I still think he'll be flex worthy, but I'm starting him as a running back 2 with RB1 upside. He's got the second best matchup in the league against the Colts, giving up almost 30 points a game to fantasy running backs on average. So I'm starting him with confidence. I think that they will realize the error of their ways. They were moving that offense in the first half against the Steelers last week, and then they abandoned the run, and the whole offense stalled. I think that he gets a good workload. The only thing that's scary here, of course, it's the 3-headed attack, but he is getting a vast majority of the touches. So I'm starting him with confidence this week. He is my start of the week, and at the very least, flex him. If you have better options, make sure you plug them in. But I think he's definitely worth a start. I guess I was gonna throw it to you, but I said I guess we should go with CJ's guy.
Oh yeah.
CJ is starting Alvin Kamara. Again.
Interesting.
I wish he was here.
This is the one show that he needed to definitely be here because he needs to defend some of these things.
Did you ever think that he put these up here just to curveball us? Because again, this isn't a great matchup.
I think he did it just to screw with us.
I think so.
I think he did it just to mess with us. It is a good match. This is the thing. It's a good matchup. It's a very good matchup.
It's not great.
He's playing. Well,
the Bears are giving up. They're middle of the road. It's not a good nor a bad matchup when it comes to against fantasy running backs. They're giving up an average of 22.5 points per game to the position. The low end is 16. The high end is 33. So not good, not great, not terrible. It's right there in the middle.
I mean, okay, Alvin Kamara's on the upswing. He's been playing very, very well. So I get all that, but the reason that I don't agree with it isn't necessarily the matchup. It's because of the guy who is my pick of the week.
Yeah.
Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
Mark Ingram has come out ever since they got rid of Adrian Peterson, and Adrian Peterson moved on to Arizona. Mark Ingram has gotten 114 and 105 yards back to back
because he's really good
over 2 weeks.
He's
very
really
good. And I think it's like the Saints just realized, you know what? this guy's really good, and he is really good. And I think that's why he's my start of the week. He is the guy in New Orleans now, and I haven't been able to say that in the past. But now that they said, okay, Adrian Peterson's gone, let's just focus on Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram went out and gave him 229 yards in the last 2 weeks and 3 touchdowns. And by the way, they're getting him involved in the passing game. He had 36 yards through the air against Detroit.
He does it all.
I mean, he does it all. This is a three down back. They're figuring that out. So that's going to eat into Kamara's production because, heck, I'm running with Ingram. If I'm the Saints, this guy's the hot hand. Keep handing him the ball, and then Alvin Kamara, he can sneak in some of those touchdowns because he has that kind of third down back ability. But I definitely, if I'm picking a running back in this game, I'm going with Ingram.
Kind of like we're saying right here. I don't understand where CJ's coming from. Mark Ingram has been the number 2 running back in fantasy over the last 2 weeks. He's getting a massive portion of the workload, over 3/4 of the offensive snaps and touches. Alvin Kamara is a change of pace pass catching back, which I don't think they're going to need because I think New Orleans is going to get up early in this game. This is in New Orleans. And then if they're trying to run out the clock, they're going to use Ingram because Alvin Kamara, though he can run through the tackles, he is mostly a pass catching option. So he's a third down back. So I agree with your pick of Mark Ingram. I love Mark Ingram. I'm trying to acquire him in some leagues. Alvin Kamara, he's a streamable option. I think he's flex worthy, but I don't think he's start of the week material. Again, CJ's not here to defend himself. So listeners, take it as you will. Let's move on to the wide receiver starts of the week. If I started Phillip Rivers, I have to start his top weapon. I know it's a very, very crowded situation, but I am starting Keenan Allen, and the reason is simple. Keenan Allen is the first read. He gets a lot of the targets. He's in the middle of the offense where Tim Hightower just went down for the year, so I don't think anyone's going to be able to match up well against him. I think he's going to feast in this game. So Keenan Allen is a guy I'm starting with confidence. Obviously a great PPR back, and I think he has touchdown upside in this game. So Keenan Allen is my guy for sure. CJ's guy is Adam Thielen, which is a guy I can get a little bit more behind. Now, of course, all the negatives are all the things we said about Stephon Diggs. This is on the road, not just in Cleveland, but in England. So that's a downer. The quarterback situation is in flux, but, I mean, he's been productive even in that time. I'm a big fan of Adam Thielen. The Cleveland Browns, again, it's not a great matchup. If there's one thing you can do against the Browns, it is run the ball. But passing, it's a favorable matchup for quarterbacks. It is not a great match against running backs. It's the 6, 7, 8, 9th toughest matchup for fantasy wide receivers. So, again, on paper, okay, theoretically you think Browns, okay, that's a good start, but when you break down the stats and the actual numbers behind it, it's not good. I can't agree with CJ again.
This is CJ though. I mean, this is CJ. CJ picks his guys. He loves his guys, and he pushes these guys all year. I mean, look at what he's got so far. Jameis Winston, Alvin Kamara, and now Adam Thielen.
Yeah,
we've been talking about these guys all year.
We could have probably predicted his starts of the week without him ever submitting these.
Without him actually putting them in there, yeah. Interesting. My start of the week is I went back and forth. I was thinking about it. And at first, I had Amari Cooper in there, but then I decided to change my vote, and I went with Michael Crabtree, and I'll tell you why. Amari Cooper had a fantastic freaking game last week. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he went off. He absolutely went off. And it's the kind of game everyone has been waiting to see from this dude. We all knew he had the ability to do it. We were all waiting for him to explode and freak out and score a ton of points, and he did. 33 points. Okay, that is fantastic. Here's the problem. That is going to be an anomaly. If you look at his year, he's done nothing. I mean, I think if you look at his entire career, he's done nothing even close to that. And I think this is going to be an anomaly on the year, and I think that it's also going to draw a lot of attention from defenses now. I mean, they just watched this kid go off for 215 yards. And they're like, holy crap. So I think he's going to get a lot of double teams. People are going to finally do what they've been wanting to do, which is double this guy and cover this guy and draw up schemes to cover this guy, which is going to leave Crabtree open to scalp all those yards and get those touchdowns. So I think that I would love to say that this is going to be a standard thing for Amari Cooper. I don't see it happening. I think Crabtree has a much bigger week this coming week.
See, I agree with everything you said. I just have a hard time getting behind Oakland receivers versus the Bills. The Bills have been really, really good against wide receivers. They only gave up 2 touchdowns on the season going into last week, where Jameis Winston had that really good game. Now, this is a copycat league. If they can figure out what they did to exploit Buffalo, sure, why not? I don't know. I'm hesitant. I don't dislike it. Like, statistically, it's a decent matchup. They'll get yardage. It's just Michael Crabtree is also
middle of the road matchup, I think.
It is middle of the road statistically, but I think they'll get yardage. Touchdowns, I think, are questionable. But I guess they're going to have to really pass with Marshawn Lynch being suspended. But they've got the carousel of running backs there. I really don't know what to expect in this game because it's a tough matchup. But
bunch of backups in there, and here's the other thing too. Though Derek Carr looked absolutely spot on in that last game, coming off of the injury. That's one of the reasons that I'm okay with picking an Oakland receiver because I think Derek Carr is going to play well.
But this game also is West Coast team going across the country to East Coast playing in Buffalo too, which is always concerning to me as well. Like, again, I'm not shooting down your start of the week. I can see it. I'm just preaching a little bit of caution because it concerns me a little bit. Let's move on to our tight end starts of the week. And, again, we're not all in perfect agreement here because then that'd be boring if we all we're like, oh, in harmony, let's do this. We give you diverse opinions. My start of the week is old man Jason Witten. Jason Witten, he's got a good matchup. He's been a very good fantasy option for parts of the season. Where does he rank on the season as a whole? Let me see this real fast. He is currently the... I'm looking... Okay, that didn't... I was like, where is he?
He's fifth.
I was looking at over the last 2 weeks still. 2, 4, 6.
Well, he's sixth on the season. And over the last 2 weeks, he is...
well, you can't find him because he had a bye week in week 6, so it doesn't really work out. But Jason Witten, look, he was awesome in weeks 1 and 2. Then he disappeared for 2 weeks, and then he's been good for the last 2 weeks as well. Obviously, week 5 against Green Bay got thrown off a little bit because he fumbled, but I mean... He has an awesome matchup against the Redskins, who he has found success against in the past, and the Redskins are also giving up the 3rd most points to fantasy tight ends. So I think that they're going to be obviously busy covering everyone else, and I think Jason Witten gets you a sneaky touchdown. I think Jason Witten gets you 50 yards and a touch this week. So, I mean, hey, if you get that from your tight end this year in fantasy, you're ecstatic. So I'm starting Jason Witten with confidence. I think he is going to be a good option. CJ start of the week, Hunter Henry. Hey, look, I can agree with this one.
Surprise.
Another one of CJ's guys. But, with everything we've been saying, they've been phasing Antonio Gates out more and more since they got him his record-breaking touchdown. Hunter Henry is that guy. I'm still concerned because Mike Williams is back, and I think he's stealing that red zone touchdown work as he gets more and more integrated into the offense. But Hunter Henry is a freak athlete. He's going to get his. And, I think that he, with that touchdown upside in a good matchup, is a viable starter. So I agree. I agree with CJ, which is weird for me to say. The Patriots are, again, a top 12 matchup, top 10 matchup against tight ends as well. So go for it. You're a guy, Jason.
Oh, God. All right, so I hate this guy because he has absolutely let me down all year. But I'm giving him one last chance, and it's Kyle Rudolph. The reason I'm giving him one last chance is because he's got the juiciest matchup of the week. He's going up against Cleveland. He's got an opportunity against Cleveland. He's been developing a rapport with Case Keenum, which is nice. So it's nice to finally see 7-8 targets go his way per game. I think that's going to get up a little bit against Cleveland. So I'm going to give it to Kyle Rudolph. I'm going to say, I would start him in this game thinking that he's going to be able to do a little something. But if he lets me down again, that's it. We're getting divorced.
Oh, wow. The Browns give up a lot of points at fantasy quarterbacks. They give up a lot of points at fantasy running backs. They give up a ton of points at fantasy tight ends. It's just the wide receivers.
A ton of points, period.
Yeah, they're tough against fantasy wide receivers, which again is why it's funny that that's the one position that CJ wanted to start against them. Let's go to our sits of the week, where I am sitting Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is at home, so that's a good thing, right? Right? But he's going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are really getting their act together. They are giving up the second least points to fantasy quarterbacks. Guys, they aren't even giving up double-digit points to quarterbacks right now. He is without probably his top wide receiver from what we're hearing from even Golden Tate's mouth, which is scary. So I in prime time. So I just can't get behind it. There are better options out there. So I am not starting Matthew Stafford. It just makes negative sense to me. Let's go to CJ's sit of the week, where he is sitting Derek Carr. So, hey, playing into the argument we had with your wide receiver, going against the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have been very, very good. They're giving up the 6th least points to fantasy quarterbacks. So I agree with CJ here. Yep. I'm not starting Derek Carr. I'm not trusting Oakland pass catchers this week in Buffalo. Your sit.
I am not agreeing with CJ on this one. I think Derek Carr looked phenomenal last game. I think he's going to continue looking really good. Yeah, it's a tough matchup. Yeah, they're traveling, but it's Derek Carr. I have a feeling he's going to play very well. But moving on, my sit of the week, and that's why we differ. Absolutely, yep. Deshaun Watson. Now look, I get it. Deshaun Watson is this year's Dak Prescott. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, look how great he is! He's playing fantastic." Yeah, he's going to Seattle to play in Seattle. He has not had to deal with this yet. He has not had to go into that stadium and play that team. And I have a feeling they're going to give him a nice welcome to the NFL party over there in Seattle. So I would definitely sit him down just this week. I mean, that is a tough defense he's going up against. They love to kill the quarterback. And I have a feeling Deshaun Watson is not going to have a very nice week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everything you just said there. Because I've had so many people write in and be like, what do I do? Because he's been so good. But a lot of his best games against his toughest defenses have been all at home. And yeah, now he's on the road in Seattle. This is something that he has not experienced yet. His toughest road matchup against the defense was Cincinnati in week 2. So no. It's just not happening. So yes,
not a good plan.
Welcome to Seattle. It's going to be, unfortunately, a probably reality check. Yeah, I know, and a lot of people have said this, but they're coming off the bye. They've prepped him for it. It's still Seattle in Seattle.
You can't be prepped for that. I mean, you cannot be prepped for the volume and that crazy defense and Richard Sherman being on the other side of the field. You can't be prepped for that. You just have to experience it, and he's going to.
Yep. If you're a believer, start him up. He's got the upside to still pull through for you, but I'm just saying, realistically, from a football sense, from a stats trends, it's dangerous. So let's move on to our running back sits of the week, and I am sitting Isaiah Crowell. Much like how you divorced or planning to possibly divorce Kyle Rudolph, we've all pretty much divorced Isaiah Crowell, and this week will be no different. He's got a home game, but it's in England against the Minnesota Vikings, who are giving up the least points to fantasy running backs. They're averaging just barely 16 points a game for the entire position, so I am not starting any Cleveland running back, but obviously I'm not starting Isaiah Crowell. CJ's sit of the week is Latavius Murray. Now, I agree with CJ in the sense that Murray, you should not be buying into him after what he did last week. A lot of that was a good matchup, and the Vikings got up early against the Ravens, and it showed not only that he's still a threat because he got some red zone work, he got some touchdowns, but also that when they are leading, he is going to get the opportunity. Now, could they be leading in this game? Easily. So, in a sense, I think that this is a dangerous sit for CJ because I think that there's upside potential, but obviously Jerick McKinnon is still there. I think Jerick McKinnon is still their lead back. So, unless they really get up by a lot and they're trying to salt away a lead and he's able to break one or two of them, I could see this as a smart sit as well. And again, in England, anything can happen, so who knows? Jason, your guy.
I agree with CJ too. I'm not a big Latavius Murray fan whatsoever. My sit of the week, again, I'm giving props to CJ's team. He's not here to hear it. It's Carlos Hyde. They're going up against Philly. Not a good matchup at all. They love to kill the running back, so I would definitely sit Carlos Hyde down.
I agree. It's a really, really tough matchup against the Eagles. That's what they're best against, is stopping the run. So let's go to the wide receiver position, where I am sitting T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton doesn't have Andrew Luck. He has no real threats on the opposite side of the field of him, and he's going on the road into Cincinnati, where the Bengals are giving up the 5th least points to fantasy wide receivers. I mean, wow, really, when you look at it, the entire AFC North is a bottom 10 matchup against fantasy wide receivers. Oh, just a little side thing I noticed there as an AFC North fan. T.Y. Hilton, he's not a guy I'm starting. I know it's a name. I know the Cincinnati Bengals are not great this year. They're, 2-4 right now? But, don't do it. It's a bad idea. If they're going to stop anyone on that offense, it is definitely going to be T.Y. Hilton, so I would not start him this week. CJ's sit of the week is Pierre Garçon. So I actually toyed with this as well, but I had a different thought process, but I'm not going to get into it. So I get it. It's CJ's sit. I was thinking about putting him as my start of the week, honestly. So it would have been fun if he was here. We could have made a bet on it. Because the Eagles, as good as they are against the run, and various other parts of their defense, they're giving up the 5th most points to fantasy wide receivers. So this is actually a really good matchup statistically for Pierre Garçon. So, I preach caution. CJ's not here to defend himself. It's kind of a homer pick. But, you could really make a case either way that, the 49ers also, him being the only real pass-catching wide receiver there, that's really a major threat. They could scheme to take him away, and the rest of the pass catchers could get some production. Who knows? You could go either way. You could sway me one way or another. That's why I didn't put him as my start, and that was without me even seeing that CJ put him as his sit. So what are your thoughts, Jason?
On Pierre Garçon? I'm not a fan. I wouldn't start him at all ever, honestly, especially given the fact that I don't like their quarterback situation. So I would more side with CJ in this one.
There you go. All right, your sit of the week.
Okay, so I got two guys, and the reason I do have two guys is because I have to explain my first guy, Golden Tate against Pittsburgh. Now, I know what we just said that he didn't feel good. We didn't know if he was going to start. I think he's going to play. The reason is they're coming off a bye. He's had time and so I think he's going to play. But even if he does play, I'm telling you, sit him down. He is coming off of that injury. They are playing a very, very tough Pittsburgh defense. Do not start Golden Tate, even if he plays. Okay, so you shouldn't be sitting there watching and going, is he going to be available? Is he going to be available? No, don't even worry about it. Just in your mind, put him as an O. Sit him on the bench. He's not going to have a good week if he plays.
Yeah, it's a shoulder injury. If he takes a good shot, it's going to knock him out of the game.
Absolutely, and then you won't get anything out of him anyway.
Yeah.
Just to back this guy up, because he is on the injury report, and most people are probably looking at not starting him anyway. I'm also going to throw in DeAndre Hopkins over there in Houston, and the reason I am, and I know what people are saying, holy crap, he's having such a great year. I know he is, but he's also playing against Seattle, and I don't like Deshaun Watson, I can't like his pass catcher either. And that would be DeAndre Hopkins. Against that defense, just don't do it. Not a good idea.
All right, and let's wrap this up with our tight end sits of the week, where I am sitting O.J. Howard. I know, he went out. He went 6 for 6, got you a bunch of yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I get it. That's not going to be every week. It's just not. Again, this is divisional, so I am not excited. And look, I guess this kind of plays into CJ starting Jameis Winston and us contesting that. And me saying, again, it's divisional. Tampa Bay, they are at home, but they're playing against their division rivals, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are good against the tight end. It's just not a good option. I mean, they are giving up the 7th least points to fantasy tight ends. They're giving up just 10 points as a total. And not to mention, there's also Cameron Brate there. So Cameron Brate has been consistently used as the pass-catching option. O.J. Howard has been used consistently as a blocker, as they said they would going into the year. Yes, do they probably realize that they've got a real opportunity to use him now? Yes. Do I think that they're going to maybe use him as misdirection? Probably, because they're not going to use him every week. They need the blockers because that offensive line needs the help. And the Panthers can get after the quarterback a little bit, so I just don't see it. It's a bad idea in a timeshare, and he's not going to repeat last week. If he does, I'll be very impressed. CJ sit of the week, Jared Cook, so he's also... Oh, no, okay, never mind. I was going to say, wait, what? Didn't he start Derek Carr? No, that was you that started a Raider. You're starting Michael Crabtree. He sat Derek Carr. Yep. He's also sitting Jared Cook, and I agree. Jared Cook's performance last week was a little bit flash in the panty. Not to say that he can't get it done, but it's just not a good matchup. So I am not starting Jared Cook either. Your sit of the week, Jason.
My sit of the week is a guy that I seem to sit every other week or so, Jack Doyle. Again, first off, I'm not a believer in Jack Doyle. I've never been a believer in Jack Doyle.
Nope.
Secondly, they're playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati has actually been pretty good against the tight end. So,
oh, yes.
Given all that, what's that?
I said, oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. So given that, I would, and again, we're talking about a situation where this quarterback is not going to have a good time going into Cincinnati either. I mean, like we said, they're bad. They haven't been a great team this year, but the defense has been very good. So I would sit down Jack Doyle. He is not going to have a nice week.
Yep, giving up the 4th least points to fantasy tight ends. It's a bad matchup. Don't do it. All right, so yeah,
doesn't roll.
That's going to do. No, not in this case. He does not. That's going to do it for us today. Please make sure you guys tune in on Tuesday when we will be covering all the starts and sits. Well, not these were starts and sits. All the studs and duds from week number 8, and of course, we'll talk about all the top waiver wire targets for week number 9. Get you guys prepped for yet another bye week hell. So, yeah, make sure you guys subscribe wherever you are listening. We are here every single Tuesday and Friday bringing you the goodness. And if you need more than that, head over to patreon.com. Get yourself bonus episodes every single week. Lots of good stuff over there. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter. We give you guys the injury updates over there. We answer questions over there. We get a lot of interaction with the community over there. That's at the FF Fanatics. That's 3 Fs, triple F, at the FF Fanatics. Or you can follow us individually. I'm at G Palmer FFF, and CJ is at CJ Hickman 89, who's not here. I'm not sure why I plugged him. And Jason is at Jason Cabrera 13. So yeah, that's going to do it for us. Any parting thoughts before we sign off, Jason?
Glad to be back, guys. I should be here for a while, and have fun.
For the long haul.
Kick some butt.
All right, we're out of here, everyone. Take care. We will see you on Tuesday. Best of luck this weekend, unless you're playing me in the Listener League. All right, bye.
Me too.
Speed of life and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank, but I'm almost at the finish line, so